Crafters, Big D here, and this week we're doing part 3 in our modular fortress. We're going to be building the base structure for our corner towers. So this one's a little different, so you're going to want a notepad to take some notes for the first step. Construction's kind of different. I'll explain it after the bump. So let's hit the table. All right, crafters. So for this project, we're going to be doing a lot of small measured pieces. And one of the things that I had decided when I was creating this project for you guys was, how am I going to show measurements? Because since this is supposed to be modular, it's actually got some very tight clearances that it's got to fit in. So what it came down to was that after using a couple different pieces of foam board, I realized not all foam board is the same. I kind of knew that already, but I realized not every foam board anybody who's watching this is going to have access to. So rather than measuring exactly based on a specific brand, I'm doing something a little differently. I'm going to be giving you measurements when I'm having you cut pieces. And I'm going to use the term X, good old-fashioned, mystery integer from math. X is exactly the width of your foam board. So if I say something is 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches plus X, you measure 2.5 by 2.5 square and then add your width, the exact width of your foam board, to that additional side. I tried it a couple different times with a couple different thicknesses and it worked every time. So rather than trying to make you use something you may or may not have access to, I found it easier to just work with whatever had at hand. So that being said, there is one rule when you make these. When you make each of these towers, you have to use the same width of foam board for the entirety of each tower. You don't have to use the same kind of foam board for both towers, but the singular foam tower has to all be of the same foam board. If you don't do that and there's any width difference, your talenters are going to be out and it's just not going to fit together right. It's going to be lots of gaps and it's not going to look good. So just keep that in mind. It sounds confusing, but when you see me showing you the pieces and showing you the measurements and when you put them together, because that's the other thing, we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to go over each of the pieces and cutting them to their sizes, and then I'm going to show you how to assemble the whole thing. So this is kind of going to be more like actually building your own model kit from foam board. So kind of a new experience for you guys. I've done this a lot. It's how instead of having to draw out plans, I write down measurements. And I've been using the X forever, but I use, brand name or whatnot when I'm doing it with foam board. So get your foam board. Make sure you have enough to build a couple of these. I would suggest if you can get the 2 foot by 3 foot sheets, the standard size foam board, one sheet should be enough to build an entire tower. I'm working off scraps. I happen to have a ton of scraps all from the same source. I used to be able to get it from a print center where they would print regular signs, and the foam board sheets they would use would be 4 feet by 6 feet. So I have sheets and sheets and sheets of the same brand. So get yourself at least one sheet of the 2 foot by 3 foot so you can cut your entire tower from that. You should be able to get both towers out of a single 2 foot by 3 foot sheet, but if not, get 2 sheets just in case. You can use the heavy duty stuff, you can use the ready board, but just like with the last project in this series, you're not peeling off the paper. You want that cardstock. So the ready board, because it's only paper-sided, is suboptimal. You want the kind that actually has the harder cardstock sides. So get your foam board, get your cutting utensil, get your straight edge and your T-square and your carpenter square, and let's get to the table and our cutting surface. We'll be right back. All right, crafters. So, because we're doing this differently, normally I just have a list of materials in the bottom below. I'm actually going to have all the measurements listed below in the bottom part of the description of this video. I'm also going to run them right here as I'm showing you the different pieces. So I suggest you take a couple notes and then come back and try and cut your pieces. Or be ready to hit pause a lot. So I'm going to show you all the pieces you need to cut to build the entirety of the foam board portion of the tower. Then we'll talk about construction and other pieces we're going to do. So the first thing you're going to cut is you're going to cut 4 pieces that are 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Just little squares. 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Then you're going to cut 1 piece that's 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches plus X. So square, just like before you cut, but then it's a little longer on one end to make it that width longer. You know the concept, now we'll go over the rest of the numbers. You're going to cut another piece that is going to be 5 inches long plus X and then 2.5 inches wide. You're going to cut 1 piece that's 2.5 inches wide. That's going to be 4 inches long minus 1 length of X. You're going to cut a piece that's 2.5 inches plus X wide, and that's 4 inches long minus X. You're going to cut 2 larger pieces. One of them is 5.5 inches tall, and it's going to be 5 inches wide plus X twice. 2 widths of your foam board in width. You're going to cut another one that's 5.5 inches tall, but it's going to be 5 inches wide plus X once. So these two are very similar. This is your outside wall. And you want them to be really close in size. So 5.5 tall, 5XX, 5.5 tall, 5X. You're going to cut 1 piece that's 5 inches plus X wide and long. So that's going to be a square. You're going to cut 4 strips. These are going to be 5.5 inches long, and they're going to be 1 inch wide. 2 of them, you're going to chamfer a 45-degree angle at one end. So 2 of them will be perfectly flat, and 2 of them will be missing a corner so they can fit together to make a nice clean corner edge. You're going to cut 2 pieces that are 1.5 inches tall by 2.5 inches long plus X. You need 2 of these. You're going to want 2 pieces of scrap. They don't have to be really big, really long. They want to be about 2 inches long. These are some supports for the floor. And then lastly, you're going to cut 2 strips that are going to be 3/4 of an inch wide, and you're going to cut off a 45-degree angle on them. And you want them to be about 6 inches long or so. You're going to be cutting them the size just to be sure, but so make them at least 6 inches long. But we're going to be cutting the sides once they're glued in place so that they fit nice and flush. So that the square end will be trimmed off to fit. So, like I said, look down below in the notes. I'm going to have all these measurements of the pieces you need. You got one cut, we'll come back, and we'll start talking about assembly. Okay, so once you have your hot glue gun warmed up, unless you're going to use tacky glue, if you're going to use tacky glue, you're probably going to want some painter's tape or some pins to reinforce your seams until things are dry. I'm just using hot glue because I'm finding it to be easy and accessible. So we're going to start off with, we're going to get the 2 that are 4 inches. The one that's 4.5 inches minus X. Okay, hot glue gun's warmed up, and we're going to start off by grabbing one of our 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch squares. And then we're going to grab our 2 pieces that are 4 inches minus X tall. So we'll take these 2. We're going to run a quick bead of hot glue down one side. And we're going to marry up 2.5 inch one. We're going to take the 2.5 inch plus X. We're going to make sure we have enough glue. So we're going to run a quick bead down the bottom here. And then one bead down the base. And then they're going to marry up. Cornered piece. Now, if you compare this to the right, now you have this piece done. You're going to take your 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch plus X, and you're going to set it up so that it forms perfect rectangle. Small bead of glue. This end's not going to be visible, so if you want to run an extra bead for strength, go ahead and do that. And then we're going to take the 5 inch plus X by 2.5 inch, and that's going to connect over to this side, forming a nice square base. So again, we're going to be glue. Match it up. And then if you feel the need, another bead. The 2 wire bead. it over the two next to each other. Just kind of tease it back and forth just to reinforce that seam not coming apart. This was the main reason why we had to cut this thing into as many pieces as we did, because since I wanted this to sit down in for strength, the width of your board would make this fit really differently if I just tried to measure it and give you the exact measurements. So, using the X, this is how we got a nice square base, but it's nice and sturdy because this is actually sandwiched in between the pieces of our base. So, this is the bottom. The next step, we're going to take the 5.5 inch tall by 5 plus X. Now we should marry right up to one end here. I'm going to take our 5.5 plus X. We're going to run a bead down the face. Here. And we've got our external wall. But again, you want strength here, so we're going to run another bead of glue where the two walls match up. And if you've been good with your measurements, and you've been consistent with your measurements, you're now going to have this double channeled area. This middle area here, this is all going to be empty because this is upper level. So with this part done and waiting for the flooring, you're going to take two of your pieces of scrap and you're just going to put them flush just so the glue is a little more something to grab on. Then you're going to run a bead of glue on the sides. And a little extra on your brace. Push it firmly in the corner. And then run a bead where it meets this inside wall. Now, remember we cut 3 more squares. These 3 squares are going to go up top. And you're going to go into this area here. So just lay down a bead of glue. Now you'll have the raised portion on your battlement. Now we're going to take the 1.5 inch by 2.5 inch plus a width of X. We're going to take 2 of them and they're going to fit these last portion of the battlement top. look, yeah, there's a little bit of a lip here. I understand why. Just the next piece we're going to put in. So the next pieces are going to be those 5.5 inch tall 1 inch strips. Remember, 2 of these need to have that inside end chamfer. Alright, the 2 that are chamfered, we're going to marry them up. Now, if you were very careful and very delicate in your chamfering, they should meet up very neatly. If they don't, and there's a gap there, you can either go with that as an aesthetic, or you can take a small piece of paper stock and just fold it in half and go over that chamfer so you have a nice sharp edge. I actually wanted a little bit of a gap, so there's going to be a small gap in the front there, but they still marry up. It's just there's going to be this edge piece there, kind of going from a rough style. You're then going to take the next 2 each one is going to go on the back end of this front facing wall. Okay, now we've got front supports, front wall. The last thing we're doing is we're going to put the abandonment walls. And that's why we have these little bit edge, because that way it'll button right up on it. So, we're taking the 3 3/4 inch ones. We're going to run glue and then you want to run a bead underneath, again, just for strength. And then you're going to take your hobby knife and you're going to trim off these lips so that the whole thing sits flush. Alright, so now the tower primary construction is done. This is your base structure. Alright, so we have our fortress built. Next time when we come back, we're going to talk about the magnetization and the detailing and paint job for the tower. So you're going to need to make your 2 towers, because for this fortress you really need at least 2, unless you're trying to build a big square all around fortress, then you might need 4. I don't see you needing more than 2, but what you build is up to you. Get them built. We'll see you next week. And until then, epic your board and epic your game. Game on.